Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I will give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interests, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Jean Johnson. She's the daughter of missionaries to the Mayan people and raised in the Yucatan jungle. Nowadays, she's a children's author, encouraging learning and imagination. There's much more to Jean than just those few little facts. So I'm happy to have Jean here today to talk more about her life and everything she's got going on. So thank you so much, Jean. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Hi, Sarah. Hello, audience. So I do want to introduce myself. My name is Jean Johnson, and I am the author of Rynnie's Adventures. Now, how Rynnie's Adventures kind of got started was when my first granddaughter was born. I began to reminisce on how I was raised, and it dawned on me that I was raised a little bit differently than everybody else. I was raised in the Yucatan jungle amongst the Mayan Indian people. And I have a huge respect and love for these people. My sister-in-law is actually Mayan Indian, and my two nieces and nephews are Mayan Indian as well. I learned so much being immersed in a different culture, in a different country. And I got to learn so much about myself at a very young age. I couldn't talk to the other kids. I had to learn their language, and I had to learn how to learn their language. It wasn't just I picked it up. I, had to walk myself through a learning process and kind of come up with it myself. And so that is how I have kind of structured these books. And that's where the Rynnie character came from. I based it off of my granddaughter. And even the name and everything, and my granddaughter's a ginger, so she has red hair and blue eyes. And so I just decided that the Rynnie character would be the perfect little character for her to go on these adventures with me as the author and show her, different things about different. Now I focus on the states, right? On different states within the United States. And I do have some books coming out that is going to focus more on the Mayan Indian culture, because like I said, that is close to my heart. But I did want to make sure that I pointed out different facts about each state that would interest the kids, animals, plants, all that kind of thing. And then the reoccurring thread between all of the books is dinosaurs. Why? Because who doesn't love dinosaurs? I am a huge fan of dinosaurs. I love dinosaurs. Anything to do with dinosaurs, dinosaur movies, dinosaur tracks, anything fossil related. And it's amazing because I have such a childlike enthusiasm for dinosaurs and for the facts that I've put in these books, and I have tapped into the kids' imaginations. When I've gone to schools and read these books to them, it amazes me how many little kids, after I'm done reading, will come up to me and they're just so excited. They're, oh my goodness, that's a big dinosaur. How do you know all this stuff? What do their feet look like? I mean, kids are full of all kinds of questions, and it's amazing whenever you just spark that one little bit of imagination in them, what they can come up with themselves. And so I remember that as a kid, and I remember using my imagination to be able to speak to the Mayan Indian kids. And I, very young, 5 and 6, I was doing like little puppet shows and little plays for them and everything. And that was how I communicated with them. And it's so funny as, here I am in the second part of my life. I'm fixing to be 50. And here I am writing kids' books. And it's just so amazing to me how what you start off thinking, okay, this is going to be my career. This is what I'm going to do. All of a sudden you have a shift in life and you're on a totally different path than what you started out on. And you're like, how did I get here? And so that's what it's been like with the Rynnie children's book series is it just happened. And I'm so excited to be here for the ride. I'm just super excited. And I'm super excited to be talking to you, Sarah. It's very exciting.
Great. And it's cool how you had that inspiration from your first grandchild, connecting it back to like when you were a kid. and, being able to share whether it's facts about the States or about these other cultures that you've had experienced. So do you want to kind of start back in childhood and talk about the culture differences? Before we hit record, you were mentioning about when you moved here and like not speaking English very well. So you want to talk about these different, how you were so immersed in culture and different language?
I think the number one thing that people always ask me about is when I did not speak English as my primary language, I was dreaming in Spanish. And I actually remember us being in the States for about a year when I had my first English dream. And I remember waking up and waking my sister up and telling her, I just dreamed in English. I just dreamed in English. And she was like, what? What are you talking about? Because we lived in Mexico. We lived in the Yucatan jungle. We lived in these places. And so it was all around us, reading, writing, everything was done in Spanish. When I was a kid, I never thought to myself, oh, well, when I'm older and I'm living in the States, that never crossed my mind ever. I just always thought that I would be in Mexico, that's where I would get married there. I'd have my kids there. I would be living in Mexico. And that's not, like I said, the shift happens and all of a sudden you wake up and it's time to move. And we're moving, back to the States and coming here and just being enrolled in school and not able to really talk to the kids, not able to, the teachers, had been warned, here, this little kid's coming and she won't be able to, really talk to you. She understands English and can read and write English, but she doesn't speak English all that well. And so that kind of was really a growing experience. Now, at the time, it was not fun because, of course, you're a teenager. I was, 12 going on 13. And so my whole life had shifted and I was already dealing with, puberty and all this other stuff happening. And then on top of that, you throw in, you're going to move to a different country where nobody's going to understand what you're saying. And it was just kind of a shocker, but praise the Lord, I was able to overcome it and just, was able to focus and learn how to speak. And it was just the exact same thing that I had done in the jungle, is taking all those little cues and learning from the kids on how to speak. Now, when I was little, I can't speak Mayan anymore, but when I was little, I spoke English, Mayan, and Spanish. And so those three languages to me was normal. And then when we moved here is whenever I lost the Mayan and could no longer, I can understand it a little bit, but cannot speak it. So that was a huge kind of a shift in just learning, okay, so I'm going to have to, use those same, tools that I did in Mexico now to learn, conversational English. And English is a very, very complicated language. And so through learning all of that, in the Rynnie books, I've decided to have a portion of the books that are coming up that'll be released hopefully in December. I had planned on releasing them a little bit sooner, but it looks like December will be the day. And in those books, I have decided that in those I'm going to teach the kids that are reading the books, of course, Spanish. So they'll have like some translations and stuff in Spanish. And then the other book we're going to focus on the Mayan language. So kids reading those books will be exposed to the Mayan language and how it sounds and how the pronunciation of those words are so different than than how we talk and how, what we hear. Mayan's a very choppy language. And so the flow of it is different, where Spanish is very melodical. When you speak Spanish, I don't know if some like Desi Arnaz, listening to him and that's how when we would speak Castilian Spanish, that's how it is. It's a very melodical, very beautiful language. And the Mayan Indian language it's the way that it's spoken is very choppy and to the point. And there are some words that cannot be translated into Mayan because there just is no word for it. Like there's not a word for cell phone. There's not a word for computer because the language is an ancient language. So they don't have a translation for those things.
Yeah. So it sounds like your experience with language has been, kind of this reoccurring difference of needing to learn new things, figuring out how as a kid to do that while going through these various times, and then translating that into the book. So what was life like living in the jungle? Like, what is different about that than, kind of like living in the States? Most of my audience is in the States or has like familiarity with living in the States. I guess I'll say it that way.
So one thing that sticks out in my head as a kid, so I'll just give you this example and then go into the reason why this is funny. When we moved here to the States, I remember being on the playground and a little boy picked up a cricket and put it in my face, and I just kind of looked at it, and he was like, "You're not scared?" And I was like, "I came from the jungle. I'm not afraid of a cricket." And so to me, that really sticks out because in Mexico, where we were in the jungle, spiders are as big as a plate. You had, you would be asleep in a hut with a grass roof. So it wasn't a traditional house like what you would, and we didn't have beds. We slept in hammocks. And I remember one day in my hammock, it was time to go to bed. And I remember looking up and there was a big, huge python crawling through the beams of the house. And I, of course, ran in to tell my mom and dad, and they were like, "Oh, he's just cleaning. Let him do what he needs to do." And so what the Mayan people will do, they leave him alone because those snakes go through their house and clear out any rodents or anything that's in the house. So they're like your little housekeepers that come in and take care of what needs to be taken care of. We did learn quickly that when you're in a hammock, you put the hammock all the way around you, so you kind of look like a burrito inside of the hammock, because bats would fly through the huts at night. And if you did not have it wrapped all the way around you, you could wake up with a bat face. And it's a little scary whenever that happens and you're sleeping and wake up with a bat stuck to your face. We had so many different animals. My dad was the original Crocodile Dundee. He loved animals, and he made sure that all of us kids grew up with a love for animals. So we had, the natives had killed a jaguar that had come through the village, and unbeknownst to them, she had 2 cubs. And so my dad was like, don't kill them, but we'll raise them. And so we did. We took them in and we raised them. My dad made sure that we had, toucans or, sloths, anteaters, all kinds of, just crazy out there animals, which to me at the time, I thought this was normal. I did not realize that this was like a flex. So when we moved here to the States, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I had a ocelot, or I had a tiger, or I had not a tiger, but a jaguar." People would just always look at me and be like, "Oh, well, you're just, showing off for this." And I wasn't trying to. I was just, and that's when I started noticing that my experience is different than everybody else's. It's just, this is how my life was. This is what I experienced at a young age. I, went to the well and pulled water. That's where we got our water. And so a lot of people, would go to a faucet. Well, we would go and, pull water from a well. Later on, my dad did make sure that the house got some plumbing. But when we first moved there, we did not. We did everything like the natives did. We had, an outhouse, and that was, of course, a learning experience too, because not everybody has ever used an outhouse. Maybe only read about it in a book. But learning these things and learning, because it's in the jungle, it's deep in the jungle, so there's not always electricity. Electricity was a luxury. And so you would have, electricity, but if it went off, it would be off for sometimes weeks at a time. And so we all had to learn to, use candles, and we had to learn, okay, at night it's time to go to bed, wake up when the sun comes up, and kind of, everything that you want to do had to be on the sun's schedule and not necessarily your schedule. We learned, if anything ever happened with the water or anything like that, we learned, to boil our water. We learned how to, take a bath with a bucket of water. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. Using a shower is one thing. But if I gave you one bucket of water, shampoo, soap, and told you, okay, take a shower, most people will be like, well, I can't do all that with just one bucket of water. But it is possible because I've done it.
Yes, definitely differences. And then, having to learn what you experienced wasn't then what your peers experienced once you were a teenager in the States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very much a difference of just learning different cultures. Different people are different in different cultures. The Mayan people they're very quiet people, and not very outwardly affectionate. Now, in their homes they are, but not outwardly. And so whenever I got to really know them and was able to put my arms around them and hug their necks and everything, I saw a totally different side to them. That is not what most people see. I think that most Americans, if they think of like the Mayan Indian people, they think of the movie Apocalypto, and that movie only shows a small little piece of what the ancient Mayans, might have been like. But the Mayans of today, that is still their background, that is still their history, but they're very much wonderful, warm people. When I see them, I just want to hug their necks just because I have that connection with them, which a lot of people, like I said, and some people don't even know that Mayan Indian people are still around. I think somebody had said, "Oh, well, they're extinct. They're not here anymore." And I remember saying, "No, they're here. My sister-in-law and my niece and nephew are both Mayan. They're here." They were shocked to learn that it hasn't. I'm like, yeah, just like the Cherokees or even the American Indians are still here, just like, well, of course, the Mayan Indians. So it was just an amazing experience to be able to go into the jungle. We all knew as kids, you don't go very far into the jungle because our backyard was the jungle. Like, we had a hut and it was surrounded by the jungle. And when I say jungle, I mean jungle. You could step outside and watch a jaguar walk through your backyard. It was, it was fairly safe because they don't want to be around humans, so they'll stay away. But you still had to be very aware of where you were walking, what you were doing, and looking around, making sure that you're, not rubbing up against a poisonous tree or something.
Yes. Now, you just mentioned that your sister-in-law is a Mayan Indian and you have the nieces and nephews. So do you still have family in the area? And could you kind of explain maybe a little bit more about your family history and say why you were living where you were living and then had to come back to the States?
Yes. So my dad and my mom had gone. Okay. So my dad was white, and my mom, white as in American and American Indian. And my mom is 100% Mexican. And my grandma is from the mountains of Guanajuato. And so my parents, when they were in their 30s, decided that they wanted to go on vacation to Cancun. Well, they went out into the ocean and almost drowned, and a Mayan Indian man saved their life. And when he saved their life, my dad said, I want to do something to thank you for saving our lives, because they really did almost drown. And this Mayan Indian man, his name was Francisco. He said, no, I don't want, money, nothing. But I'm just glad that you guys, everything's okay. But Francisco was a Mayan Indian. And so my dad, purposed in his heart that he was going to go, and as a thank you to this man for saving his life, he was going to go and have establish a um, like a mission down there. So this has been, golly, I'm about 50. And so this has been a very long time ago. And my brother and his wife, who is, from the village, her brother is a chief of the village of Senor. And they have established and continued on the mission that my dad started 45 years ago.
Wow. So do you still go back and visit at all?
I have gone back once after my last daughter was born. I have not been back since. Every time that I have planned on something, on something going, something happens. Like the last time that I made plans to go, COVID hit and shut everything down. So I have not been back. I do still talk to them through social media. I still do talk to the Mayan people and my friends that are still there through social media and text messages. Mm-hmm.
Great. It's, travel in the past few years has definitely been difficult. But the fact that you are able to connect still through the wonderful world of technology, like that's always good to hear. So now you mentioned how, these books were something that, you enjoy and kind of came from when you were a child. And it wasn't something you've been doing your entire life. So how is it that you kind of got this spark to the point of, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to write more books than just one? Like there is going to be a thread, there is going to be a character and the dinosaurs and all of that.
Well, a lot of us kids grew up watching Reading Rainbow. And LeVar Burton had this whole thing. I mean, I remember as a kid when we would come to the States, I remember me and my sister waking up super early so that we could, watch all the cartoons and, see, and we would hear that Reading Rainbow, Reading Rainbow. And we would just go running into the living room and, sit there so that we could, see what this week was all about, And what's funny to me is that at the time, I didn't realize who he was or what he was doing or anything like that. And years later, seeing him on Star Trek, and it sparked that in me, again, imagination. And it always comes back to those things that kind of, I don't know if it's like a pinpoint in time, but it's that one thing that you say, oh my goodness, this sparked this in me. So I want to do that too. I want to make sure that the books that I write are worthy of a child's attention. I want to make sure that they're colorful and bright and will spark their imagination and give them tools to be able to spark those imaginations. I don't want the books to be boring or, full of just, nonsensical information. I want these books to be fun so that a kid, when they see them, or get excited. Oh my gosh, Rynnie Rue's going on an adventure. Let's go. That kind of thing. So for me, whenever this whole thing started, I had never done anything like this ever. This was not even a part of the equation. Because of my husband's job, we've kind of moved around a whole lot, and we had moved to Temecula, California. And while we were there, I did commercials and a bunch of ads and stuff for Buick and GMC. Now, it's so funny how all of this links up, because when I got the idea for the children's book, I knew how to do a lot of the technical side of the books because of what I had done in my second, in my other job. So what's funny to me is that I was able to switch it. And instead of working for someone else, work for myself and make sure that I focused on the things that I think little kids would be interested in. Little kids' minds are they're like little sponges, and they have so much information that's already going, that walking and talking and, all these things, that when you throw other stuff in there, it needs to be uplifting and happy. And that's what I really have focused on these books. I want kids, when they pick up a book, a Rynnie Rue adventure book, for them to be inspired. I want them to feel like they have just been blasted by sunshine. I want them to have just an amazing outlook on life after reading the books. I want them to feel that excitement. I don't want it to be anything to do with adult anything, because as adults, we dull. We dull down all those bright things. We're not as amazing as little kids are. Little kids they're the future, and they're the hope, and they're just these little balls of energy. And if I could just hug and squeeze all of them, I would. I just love them so much. And I want to make sure that they feel that when they are reading a Rynnie Rue book, that they, feel that, oh, this person that wrote this really does care, really does, love and want us to join in on the fun and the adventure and not be left behind.
Yes. And you mentioned how, colorful and fun and everything it is. So you're writing the books. Are you also illustrating, or do you have someone that you work with?
I do all of that too. So learning again with the Photoshop and all that type of stuff that I was able to learn, I'm able to do my own storyboards. The only thing I don't do is edit and translate my books. I have an editor and I have a translator. Praise the Lord. Because you do not want me trying to make sure that things are spelled correctly. But it has been... And anyone else who's looking to get into books, that is the main thing that I would tell them. Make sure that you're ready, for it, and have a really good editor, someone who knows, kind of what, not just from a page, but knows what you are trying to get across to the kids. Because my editor will catch that, and she'll tell me, hey, this, sound, you need to tweak this a little bit. I know what you're trying to say, but it didn't come across that way. Make sure that you, change this or that. And so always, if you're trying to write a book or get started in this, make sure that you are working with somebody who gets you and gets your vision, and then y'all can collaborate together to come out with a really cool product.
Definitely. Now, since this, inspiration came from your first grandchild, what do the grandchildren think of your Rynnie Rue adventures?
Well, so far it's just her. She is the first. Now my daughter is expecting grandbaby number 2, and I have already written him in the Kansas book that was released earlier this year. And so little Tater Tot is already in there, and it'll be Rynnie Rue and Tater 2. And those will be the little characters that are going to kind of lead the way. And how I did, it's so funny. I wanted to make sure that I used animals to represent the kids and their imaginations in these books, because I love animals so much that in through this and teaching the kids about them, I'm hoping that they develop a love for animals and really kind of be able to grasp and get a hold of that, because love and inspiration are so important to imagination. It's all connected. And so if we can spark that little bit of, oh, I have a cat, or, oh, I have a dog, oh, I have, this or that, and it shows up in the books, they'll be able to get a hold of it and be like, oh, okay, if they have this, and, Mom, I want to be, I want to be a turtle, or I want to be a seal, or I want to be, whatever else. And so there are very many other animal characters that are coming in the books that I'm hoping that the kids will get a hold of and really, really enjoy and like.
And since this was something that you didn't start doing, the writing, until after your kids were not of children's book age, how were you able to kind of inspire your own kids with imagination and love of animals?
Well, so my kids are older. I have a 27-year-old, a 26-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So my kids are older. I made sure growing up with them that we did tons of crafts. Like I said, when I was little in the jungle, I would do puppet shows and plays and stuff like that for the Mayan Indian kids. So why would I not do that for my own kids? So I would get on the floor with my own kids and do, puppet shows with them. I would get on the floor with them and play, blocks or whatever, because I'm a big kid at heart. I remember what it's like to be little. I remember how hard it is to, trying to tell an adult what you're thinking and you don't have the correct words. And so you're just kind of stumbling over yourself trying to get those. That is one of the main things that I'm focusing on when I was raising my kids. I wanted my kids to be able to talk to me. I wanted my kids to be able to tell me, Mom, this is how I'm feeling. This is not, what I want to do, this, that. And I did that with play. Like I said, getting down on the ground with them, we would do arts and crafts, paper mache. We did all kinds of stuff. We would paint blocks, anything that I think that they would enjoy. I would get down and do it with them. And again, I just think I think it's important. I think that it, has helped my kids, of course, grow and become, who they are and be able to be individual with it, because they're able to say, okay, my mom's, she's so crazy. She'll sit there and play with us, or she'll, she's not afraid to get dirty. I'm the mom that likes, going and picking rocks and, looking at the little insects. And I love that. And I think that now that my kids are older, they are like, yeah, that's my mom. My mom's that lady over there who's checking out the butterflies and the caterpillars and and out there with, magnifying glasses to see, what's going on in the dirt. And when you're little, I think that is the most important thing that you can do with your kids, is just get dirty with them, learn how to play and learn how to, show them that you're interested, because when parents are interested in something, the kids are going to be interested too. I think it's very important that parents take the time to read with their kids, do puzzles with your kids, just have that one-on-one time with them, because the more one-on-one time that you have with them when they're little, when they get older, they'll talk to you. And I have a very solid relationship with my children. And I think that's why.
And are you that same kind of grandma as you were as a mom, being involved and getting dirty?
Oh, no. No, not at all. Not at all. It's so much fun. It's so much better being a grandma, because when you're mom, you also too have to be the disciplinarian. You're the one that has to step in and say no, or, get on to them or show them structure or whatever. Now, when you're grandma, you don't have to do that. You can sugar them up and send them home. It's so much funner. I have a blast with my granddaughter. I love to just sit in her room and play with her and not have a care in the world about, if I'm feeding her nothing but, mac and cheese and a cookie. It's, that's what she's going to get coming, over to grandma. Mom can handle all the healthy stuff, but when she comes to my house, it's going to be fun and cotton candy and, I'll make sure she brushes her teeth, but we're going to have fun. It's going to be all about fun. I want her to make sure that she just knows that I'm all about her. Being a grandma versus being a mom, it's a totally different game. It's just totally different. And I would just encourage everybody, if you can and you have the opportunity to step in and be a grandma to anybody who needs one, do it, because it's a very fulfilling experience.
And what is it like being a grandma at the same time still having a teenager at home? Like balancing those kind of two.
Yeah, it's totally crazy. So when me and my husband were married for 10 years. We already had our older kids. So we had been married 10 years. Our son was 10 and our daughter was 9. And we go to the doctor and he says, "Oh, you're pregnant." And we were like, "What?" So that was very strange, having a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an infant. And so now having, kids who are almost 30 and one who's not yet 20, and then having grandma on top of that, it really is wearing 3 different hats, because your kids never outgrow needing you. Like, I never really thought about that. I never really thought about how much I depend on my parents. My dad passed away about 22 years ago, so he's been gone quite a while. But I never really thought about, how much I went to them to ask for an opinion or a question or, whatever else. Now it's my turn. And I'm like, this is incredible, because, my son has different questions than my daughter has, different questions. And the 17-year-old has different questions than what they have. And what was interesting is that when she was, of course, you always have that age where they don't want anything to do with you. You're not cool. They don't want to talk to you, come into the room and shut the door and that. However, whenever you allow them just to be teenagers and just kind of be who they want to be and let them grow and kind of spread their wings a little bit, they seem to always come back. And that's how mine has been. Like, from being, having to, these are the rules, this is what we're going to do, to, oh, look, here comes our granddaughter. We're going to be her best friends. We're going to, eat candy and stay up late. And, and the kids are like, "What are you doing? That's not." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, it is. This is this is grandma me. You get mama. You don't get grandma me, you get mama, because I have to make sure that you're, doing your homework and not staying up too late and not staying out past curfew and all this stuff." So yes, it is having to wear 3 different hats. But I enjoy it. I absolutely enjoy it. And and I'll tell you this, and it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. It's really not. It's your personality and what fulfills you, right? Because parenthood may not fulfill everybody. But guess what? It fulfills me. And so I can only talk about my experience. It fulfills me. I feel like I have peaked because I'm happy with where I am. I'm happy with where I am. I'm happy that, not that everything is perfect and not that everything goes your way all of the time, but it's saying, okay, this is the lot that I got, and I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to cultivate it. I'm going to make it into more. If I, got lemon seeds, I'm going to plant them and have me a bunch of lemon plants. It's not ever looking at things on the downside, but always taking what you have and saying, okay, what can I do with this to make it brighter and better and bigger and make it mine? And so for me, I've done that. I feel like I have done that. I feel very, very blessed and very appreciative for where I am and what I've dealt with in my life. A lot of people have asked me in the past, they're like, how can, you're just positive because you've never been through anything. And I'm like, oh, okay. No. When my oldest daughter was born, she was 3 days old and she was admitted into the hospital. They kept sending us home, telling us nothing was wrong with her. Come to find out, she was born without the ability to swallow. And so when we were feeding her, she was aspirating, which means the liquid was going into her lungs and drowning her. I was 20, so it's very young. And when this was all going down, I just remember thinking, what is happening? I have a 1-year-old. I have her in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 3 months. She had 2 surgeries when she was 3 days old. It was a traumatic experience. The doctors told us she won't walk. She'll talk with the speech impediment. She'll never be able to do sports. She'll be delayed learning. All this stuff. And I just remember sitting there listening to these doctors and just being devastated. I mean, like I said, I was only 20. I didn't understand. I trusted what the doctors were telling me. I didn't understand how everything can change, right? And so we just began praying over her. I'm like, you know what? You're not giving me any hope. I'm going to get some hope of my own. Like I said, when people give you those nasty little seeds, you plant them and you make something out of them. And so we just began praying over her, and she grew up. She was walking at 10 months old. She was an elite gymnast. She did athletics in high school. And now she's, like I said, pregnant with her second child. So again, when those kind of adversity things start, hitting you in the face and coming after you make the choice. I can, either wallow in this and I could have just been so, upset and depressed and everything that they have, or I could grab that bull by the horns and say, you know what? No, we're going to try even harder. We're going to work with you. You're going to walk. We're going to work with you and you're going to talk. We're going to work with you and you're going to, and that's the kind of thing. You have to be more stubborn than they are.
Yes. And you definitely can't just, look at someone or take someone's attitude of like, this is their life 100% of the time. And, life changes, different situations happen, and you could even be going through something like that at the same time of outward positivity with what you've got going on. But it is very obvious, like how much your joy and passion does radiate through. And your daughter proved those doctors wrong.
Yeah, we just, recently when she turned 18, she wanted to know more about her case files. And so she requested her case files from the children's hospital that she was at. And she called me up and she was just like, Mom, I didn't realize I was there for 3 months. I didn't realize all of this stuff. And I told her, I said, yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It is definitely a lot. But again, like you said, you have to just decide, each person, everybody, we just have to decide. Are we going to play along? Or are we going to say, no, I'm going to go to my own beat. I'm going to, get my little drum and I'm going to drum it up and just march to my own little beat. And that's kind of what I do with my with my everyday living. I just kind of beat on that drum and just kind of keep on walking. People will tell me all the time, "Oh, Jean, you that's not something that, how are you going to do all this?" And I'm just thinking, "Oh, well, it'll happen. I'll make it happen. It'll just all work out." And I think that's the best advice that you can give anybody going through anything or wanting to start a new career, or wanting to, launch something new. Hey, if you believe in it, go for it. Nobody else has to believe in you. Nobody else has to see the vision. Nobody else has to. It's up to you. You make it happen. If it's something that you really, really enjoy doing, then go for it. And that, with me, with the Rynnie Rue Adventure books, encapsulates what I've experienced. It's something that I saw, something that I felt, and I just ran with it. And I was like, didn't even ask myself where it was going to go at the time. I just knew that I had this story inside and I needed to get it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, before I start to wrap things up, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners today?
Yes, absolutely. If they are interested in learning more about me or the Rynnie Rue Adventure Series books, they can look us up on the web at www.rynnierue.com. They can also find us on Facebook at Rynnie Rue Adventures and Authors page, as well as Instagram, Rynnie Rue's Adventures. I post a lot about my home life, about my animals, and of course about the books. But that is my, as far as kind of seeing behind the scenes, that's what they're going to get if they, find us on social media.
Great. I will definitely link all of those websites in the description for you. Now, at the end of all my episodes, I do ask my guests a random question. So my question for you is, who would you want to trade lives with?
Who would I want to trade lives with? That's a hard one, because I really like my life. I really do. I mean, it's been hard. Like I said, I've seen loss. I've lost my dad, and my daughter, went through so much when she was first born. But all those things have made me stronger. I don't know that I would pick anybody else. I like where I am, and I like my life. Yeah, I definitely like my life. Now, if in a decade, if you're saying if you wanted to go to a different decade, I think that I should have probably been born in the 20s. I really do. I think I should have been born in the 20s or the 30s, because I love the 20s and the 30s music. I'm not a big music fan of today, but the old roaring 20s music I just love. I love all that jazzy stuff.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. So as Jean mentioned, if you would like to connect with her, learn more about her and her books, her website will be in the description, along with her Facebook and Instagram pages. I will also be leaving a link for her books on Amazon. If you are interested in purchasing those, that link will be there as well. And of course, if you would like to connect with the podcast, our website is always in the description. We are on social media as well. We are on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So all of those can be found on our website, along with all of the past episodes, past resources, social media, all of the good things that previous guests have shared. And if you would like to be a guest on the show, my email is in the description. That is always the best way to reach me. And if you would like to support the podcast monetarily, there is a link to do that as well. So thank you so much, Jean, for spending time with me today, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next time, bye.
Bye, Sarah, and thank you for introducing me.